So, Minister, can you tell us what you're going to deliver for rural voters if elected?
Well, I think I give that voice from the green perspective, but also because I'm a farmer and live in rural Ireland, I understand the issues, and I think there's no denying that the future of Irish agriculture, of rural Ireland, of the whole economy has to be greener, has to try and remove fossil fuels from the system, all of that. The challenge, I think, is in rural areas in particularly, and with agriculture, but we've actually seen in the last year agricultural emissions have gone down by nearly 5%. So things are working, particularly from an agricultural perspective. I think there's a lot that's been achieved and a lot has been put in place over the last 4.5 years because the Greens have been in government, and there's a huge amount to build on, and that we will continue to build on that. We will listen to communities, listen to farming communities, listen to rural communities, and try and meet them where they're at to help everyone transition to this green future.
Minister Hackett, how would you put more money back into farmers' pockets?
I've always positioned this that governments and the state can do very little about the price a farmer gets for his or her produce. Prices are pretty good at the minute actually across the board, which is welcome, but we can't control that. What we can do is we can support farmers inside the farm gate by reducing input costs. I mean, if you look back over the last 20 or 30 years, input costs have really gone through the roof, particularly in the last number of years, but they've consistently increased. You could argue that the price farmers have been getting is roughly been the same, over that period. So that has, really put pressure on farm incomes, on farm profitability. So my focus would be on supporting farmers inside the farm gate to reduce their input costs. And we've already delivered on that to a certain respect. Even the organic farming scheme, okay, it's a subsidy, but you're also reducing the input costs at the same time. Supports for farmers around multi-species swards and red clover silage. They were very green initiatives brought in to help farmers to mitigate the costs of increasing fertiliser costs. Farmers are adopting it and they're implementing it. They're some of the simple measures that we can be looking at, and I'm sure there's many more.
Well, I think with the election, I think it really needs to be outlined. Factory prices really I think there should be a floor put on them, because at the present moment I think we're equivalent to €1 behind the UK beef prices, and I think for a premium product that's being exported, I don't think it's good enough. I think we should be at least matching their prices. They're importing our beef. That means there's a serious profit there for them as well. So.
A key issue for rural communities is getting young farmers to commit to farming. How would you get more young people into farming?
It's a huge challenge, and you don't have to go that far back. In the 1990s we had a farm retirement scheme that I thought at the time, I knew people around me who availed of it. I thought it worked pretty well, so we don't really have to reinvent the wheel here. I do think it's a failing of this government that we didn't have a farm retirement scheme in place. We're either serious about encouraging young people into farming, or we're not. If we're serious about it, then we support it and we look at every means of doing that. So yes, I think we need some sort of a retirement scheme to support that transition, whether it's intergenerational, in a family related way, or even outside. I don't think that matters so much, but also young people, the difficulty in accessing land. We've some proposals around maybe an equity scheme. We see it in the housing policies of governments, of the outgoing government, and maybe into the future. Something similar maybe for young farmers to access land, where maybe the state would support that, and keep some equity in that. I also think we need to be looking favourably at the tax incentives around leasing, and whether we could look at it more favourably for younger farmers too.
Just on the track record of the last government with regards to the agricultural portfolio, we have had key issues around acres and also TB rates. What is your reaction on how that would change next time around?
I think acres at the moment is set in stone. It's part of the CAP strategic plan, and we have the number of farmers in it, albeit greater than what the scheme was originally devised for. That's something I actually I fought hard to get the scheme up and running in the first place, to look at that results-based payment, to look at the CP schemes, element of the acres scheme, which I think has been warmly welcomed. I think the problem now is that we took too many in. The system was designed for 50,000 for 30 and then a further 20, and we exceeded that, and that put pressure on the whole system. It put pressure on not only the department, the IT systems, it put pressure on farm advisors as well on the ground, and I think we need to learn from that. We're losing the battle on TB. I think we're seeing increased rates in certain areas of the country, in certain types of farming. I mean, on the whole, the vast majority of farms are TB free, and that gets lost in this. But saying that, it's costing taxpayers 100 million a year to eradicate it, and we're not doing that. If I were Minister for Agriculture next time round, I'd be really looking across the water. I'd be looking to other EU countries and to other countries with similar challenges, and we really have to get the shoulder to the wheel in terms of devising a vaccine for TB. We have a vaccine for badgers. It's not the same one, we can't use it in cattle, but a vaccine will ultimately sort this out and will save the taxpayers millions of euro.
Do you believe the nitrates derogation is important to Irish farmers?
I do. I accept that it's a crucial part in terms of the economic viability of the sector as a whole, and of a cohort of farmers out there, but it's underpinned by water quality. Everyone knows that, and that's where the challenge is. I was on the farms when the European Commissioner representation came over to discuss that earlier on this year. And look, they're very interested into what Ireland's putting in place and the measures we're putting in place. But at the end of the day, they will look at the figures, they will look and see what direction our water quality is going in. And unfortunately, it hasn't been going in the right direction.
You can't blame the government for everything, but look, what we want as farmers is to produce the best food that's possibly can be produced, and we're being very, very over-regulated, and when we're over-regulated, what means that people won't apply for schemes.
I think we're on the cusp of something quite exciting, because we've seen the things that farmers can now do to maybe reduce their reliance on fertiliser, one example. We've seen what farmers can do to hopefully improve that water quality and get it to the levels we need to meet, if it's to retain the derogation, and just for the wider societal good of having cleaner water. I think for me, there was a lot of fear and maybe agitation around the passing of the nature restoration law. But the fact now that is a law enables politicians and like-minded politicians like me to go to Europe and to put pressure on saying, where's the funding? You expect us to do this, you expect our farmers to align with nature restoration targets and plans. Give us the money, show us the money for that, outside of the CAP funding, which has to be retained as well. So I think that's the silver lining of that to people who are concerned about where the nature restoration law might bring us. It enables us to ask for the money, and that's exactly what we should be doing.
Well, I suppose from my point of view, derogation is a major issue for Ireland. It would be an issue for ourselves, but it's a major issue for Ireland as well, and we need to fight to keep that, while at the same time improving water quality, and we are doing our bit there, and we are making strides forward. We just needs a little bit of time.